So page 66 takes us directly to, and remember what that first question we need to ask ourselves is, what kind of text is it? It's a historical text, and that is a type of informational text. Where as we read on, we'll start to see which people and events or ideas and concepts the author mostly discusses. During the Middle Ages, much of Africa was a mystery to Europeans. A few travelers, however, told tales of wealthy African kingdoms. Just gonna pause there. I'm seeing that word Africa and African. Okay, so I know that the topic has something to do with Africa. A few travelers, however, told tales of wealthy African kingdoms and endless supplies of gold. So I just also saw wealthy, endless, that means never ending, supplies of gold. Okay, but was this true? Could fortunes be made there? Okay, again, fortunes. So there are some words in common that I want you to take note of, and go you if you already thought of these things that I'm about to tell you. Yay, you. There's Africa and Africa. There's also wealthy. There's, of course, kingdoms, gold, and fortunes. Okay? So overall, it makes me feel like the topic that I'm reading about will have something to do with Africa and their wealth. Let's keep reading on. By the 1400s, improvements to European sailing ships made long ocean trips possible. So again, talking about Europeans. Ooh, Africa was a mystery to Europeans. Okay, almost forgot to make my little note there. Okay, so Europeans are wanting to go to Africa to see if it's true that Africa is a wealthy land. Cool. By the 1400s, that's a long time ago, way back in the past, improvements, that means things got better, to European sailing ships, okay, made long ocean trips possible. Okay, so that tells me that before the improvement, maybe they weren't able to make long ocean trips. So, Portuguese, and guys, Portugal is a country in Europe. So, Portuguese sailors began exploring along Africa's coastline. They set up trading posts. Ooh, okay. Tells me something they did. In ports along the way. And other Europeans soon followed. Why did they soon follow? Oh, right, to see if Africa is a rich and wealthy land. This was because the Portuguese had discovered the stories to be true. Okay, boom. They just told us. So therefore, that means that Africa is or was indeed, I believe it still is, was actually wealthy. Boom. All right. Indeed, there was wealth to be had. Oh, just like we predicted. Gonna box wealth, and we got that there. Europeans could trade their goods for, trade their goods, that's important because that's what they wanted all along. Who could trade it? Europeans could trade their goods for salt, spices, ivories, and yes, even gold. I feel like this would be this little main idea here. I know that the focus is not main idea, but remember when we think about standards, guys, it's not just one per text. We're layering standards one after the next, just like building bricks of a really strong home of comprehension in our mind. So we have our main idea there. What's the relationship between these events? Okay, let's think to ourselves before we think anything about this page where there's cause and effect charts and all that, because you're probably not going to see that on a test or anything like that. And if you were to have to make a chart, even if you weren't taking a test, you would have to figure out yourself. It makes me a little bit upset that the book does it for us, but that's okay. Not complaining. All right. Top paragraph right here. Oops, I should have numbered it. Paragraph 1, they talk about how what is the event going on, or what is the idea going on? We have nothing. It doesn't talk about individuals, so let me think. If there's an event or a concept, it would be about the wealth of Africa. Who's wondering about the wealth of Africa? Europeans. Okay. And what eventually happened? They explored. Oh, this is a big deal. They went exploring, and they set up and made improvements to their ships in order to go sailing. Oh, so this is the cause and effect kind of thing going on. The effect is that they could trade their goods because they set up ships. They got other Europeans to follow. They set up, what do you call it? Where was it? They set up trading posts along the ports. Okay, that's perfect. And a port is usually where you stop off and some action goes on there. Okay, perfect. So right there, we summed up some of the relationships that are going on. So let's take this information. Luckily, the text, or not the text, but the page already states for us what the effect was that we found at the bottom. Europeans traveled to Africa and traded with Africans. Okay. Let's see. And why did this happen? What caused that? All right, well, we read in the very, very beginning that Europeans it was a mystery to them, right? And they were told many, many stories. So let's see. Europeans, and I'm not writing in perfect English. These are just quick notes. Told stories about, and you can put African wealth, you can put African kingdoms, or you know what? We can join those ideas and we can put wealthy, or that means rich. Ooh, yeah, I put Rick. Rich, capital A, because it's a continent. African kingdoms, and that's important for you guys to know. Make sure that you don't call Africa a country. Make sure that we call it a continent. Europe is a continent. North America is a continent. And we did go over that earlier this year and last year. Okay, why did this happen? Why did this happen? Why else? Well, one thing that we read about, what did they do in order to make longer trips again? Because they weren't able to make those long trips, they had to improve their sailing ships. My pens are flying. All right, let's see. I'm gonna put Euro improved sailing ships. Longer. Right there's a little bit of a cause and effect relationship right there. Cause and effect. They were able to, or therefore they were able to go on longer trips. Let's come up with a more mature word. Longer voyages. Ugh. Longer voyages. Alrighty. Why else did this happen? Why else were they able to trade with African kingdoms? Let's see. I remember learning about one specific country. Ooh, Portuguese sailors began exploring along the coastline and they set up trading posts. That's pretty important. And I want to make sure that I spell that correctly. It's right there in the text. Portuguese sailors set up or organized trading posts on or along African coasts. Okay? All right. So even just to do a quick little depiction, hearing stories, okay? Improve the ships. Oh, that's a messed up ship. That's all kind of, ooh, that's rough. Okay, and then the sailors set up little trading coasts along the shoreline. So drawing a little docked area on the ship, able to do stuff right there on the port where they can trade with people of this land right here, so they can interact with each other. All right? Okay. At the bottom, it goes over some of these academic words. Remember to also keep in mind the word interactions. Okay? Let's move right into the second text. Okay, ancient Saharan trade routes. Ancient, I know that means a long time ago in history. I wonder if this is giving me a hint about the type of text this will be. If it's going to be, oh, bloop, history article. Ancient Saharan trade routes. I know a route is used like a path, a way to get from point A to point B and beyond. Saharan, that sounds kind of familiar. I've heard of the Sahara Desert before. And trade, we just talked about trade. Okay, buying and selling. Or switching one thing for the value of another thing. Okay, by Joris Madron. Cool name. All right. Paragraph 1. What are we looking for again? Oh, right. The type of text is historical. We're wondering if this text will tell me about people or events or ideas and concepts that have a relationship or interaction between each other. Also, I must keep in mind, what are the details that support these connections? Always must have those supporting details. The Sahara is a vast or really large desert in northern Africa. It stretches from the Atlantic Ocean in the west to the Red Sea in the east. All that's telling me is that it's really huge. Its size and harsh conditions, okay, that's a new idea, harsh conditions make travel hazardous. Hazardous. When you guys see a hazard sign, hazard, do not cross, or caution, right? Hazardous means dangerous, like hazard, explosive, all those things. There's lots of science. Make sure you remember that word. It's a life skill. Say it 3 times. Hazard, hazard, hazard. Danger, danger, danger. Okay, if you see a sign like that, run. Well, don't run. Walk far away. Nevertheless, trade thrived here. That means they did really well here from the 700s to the 1500s. So nevertheless is kind of like the word however. And however usually means but, B-U-T, or however. So even though the conditions or the environment there was very dangerous, they were able to thrive here. If you didn't know the meaning of the word thrive, think of what the opposite tone mood feeling was of the sentence before. Its size and harsh conditions. That has a negative tone mood feeling. So after the word but, nevertheless, or however, I should expect something positive. Okay? Thrive here, or more than survive, that means doing well. Trade did well here from the 700s to the 1500s. That's a long time ago. It continues to this day. Ooh, that's really positive then. Wow. So what's the main idea up here? Okay, again, very similar to the last one, Africa and trade. Okay, where are they doing it specifically in Africa? The Sahara. I'll put that at the top. The Sahara Desert. Okay, one of our DSVs. What do you predict might be the next set of information they might tell you about? The next thing that they might tell you about that has a relationship with this information. I know in that last text we read, the relationship was between Europeans being interested in going to Africa, and then Africa and Europeans and Europe being able to trade with each other. That's a relationship there. What might be the relationship here? Long ago, Berber merchants established or set up a network of trade routes. We should have added this one to our DSV's network. Many different parts, like a system that interact with each other. This word is a huge deal. Okay. EDSB is a network. Okay. School, different administrators and principals throughout Hillsborough County, they have a network. They have to interact with each other and share ideas with each other about what works for them in their schools. Think of that as a network. So long ago, Berber merchants established a network of trade routes across the Sahara. And what do I remember about the Sahara again? It's huge, it has rough conditions. These routes linked markets in North Africa in North Africa, the Middle East, and Europe with markets in West Africa. Okay, so still talking about areas in Africa and that same continent. Because the Middle East is like right there by Africa. The merchants regularly crossed the Sahara to African settlements on the fringes of the desert. The fringes of the desert. That reminds me of when it talked about in this text that they did it along the coast. They set up little trading spots along the coast. Think about the fringe also as like the edge as well, okay? The merchants regularly crossed the Sahara to African settlements on the fringes of the desert. I'm going to pause here and I'm going to think back. So even though, once again, it's really, really rough and huge, they still regularly cross this area in the desert. Okay, and why are they doing that again? They have a little network, a little wide, vast community where most likely they're doing, back to the topic here, trade in the Sahara. Oh, that's crazy. That's cool. The merchants regularly crossed the Sahara to African settlements on the fringes of the desert. In those settlements, they traded salt, horses, cloth, and later books for gold, metals, and spices, and other items from farther south. Can I just point out the fact that books were such a big deal? It still is a big deal. Please read, like, throughout your life. Berber and African merchants made profits. Ooh, remember what we said about that? So trade increased. Berber and African merchants made profits. They made lots of money. So they made more, whatever they had to spend, they made way more than that. So they had a profit. They had more money coming in than they had going out. That's a good thing. So trade increased. That would be the little main idea of this paragraph. As a result, the African settlements grew to become important centers of trade. Okay. Africa, important centers of trade. And as trade increased, so did the wealth and power of West African rulers. Oh, that is so cool. So, Africa, wealth. Oh no, not wealth again. I'm going to put trade equals power. I'm going to put one more word there. I'm going to put profits, or actually I'll just circle this word right here, profits. Okay, the little arrow, because that was a big deal. All right. Just have to move something around on my table. Okay. To Berber merchants, oh, pause, I'm so sorry. Let's think about the relationship so far between paragraph 1, paragraph 2. What's happening again? I'm going to keep on repeating this, and I want you to keep on repeating it. That's why I'm thinking out loud for you. There's harsh conditions, but ever since way back in the day, they used to cross that desert, right? Because they found that trade was important, okay? Long ago, they went through a certain route linking different areas together, and let's see right here, they traded many different goods. Remember, we used to learn the difference between, in that LDC about colonial markets, we learned the difference between a good and a service, the difference between a product and a service. These are products, right? So, Very good. And then what happens as a result? Africa grew in its wealth and its power. Okay, let's continue. To Berber merchants, the dangerous journey. Ooh, we did read about danger further up. The dangerous journey across the Sahara was worth the risk. For safety, okay, so right away they talked about danger, risk, and safety. I'm thinking main ideas still. Main ideas help me understand the relationship. For safety, merchants travel together in large groups. So the author is continuing to tell me how they stayed safe. Known as caravans. DSV. Okay, I can already tell this has to do with safety while traveling. And why were they traveling again? To trade. They using camels to transport their goods. I love animals. Using camels to transport their goods. That's a huge deal. Caravans walked about 200 miles a week. Even at that pace, however, the trip took more than 3 months. Okay, so that's where this text feature comes in. If I had to make a little caption right there, I would say, and this is another example of a type of test question that you guys often get, what information in the text best illustrates or best symbolizes or best represents the text feature or the image on the page? It would be paragraph 3. Okay. The merchants' use of camels made it possible for them to cross the Sahara. So camels made it possible. That's a huge deal right there. That tells us a lot about the relationship between Africa and these other places that they trade with, because without camels, they wouldn't have been able to make these important trades. Without camels, this whole African power of West African rose, that wouldn't have happened. So, power to the camels. The merchants' use of camels made it possible for them to cross the Sahara. These hard-working animals could carry heavy loads with ease over scorching, shifting sands. I love animals, man. During long journeys, they had the ability to conserve water. Camels were called ships of the desert because they hauled trade goods across the desert. That tells me what trade goods means. Even the picture tells me, the image tells me, I can tell that they're carrying a load on their back. So hauling something wouldn't be like, you don't say I'm hauling a cell phone. It would be something to do with a heavy load, because they hauled trade goods across the desert, just as ships carried cargoes across the sea. Okay? So now, not only are they able to trade over the sea, but they're also able to travel on land now. Because remember, both of these take a long time, but the more different ways you can find to do one thing, the more you might be able to benefit. And in this case, the more money different parties will make from this trade, okay? All right, so this is all about camels. Camels made it possible. All right. So, all right, there they go again. They're already giving you the effects. The West African settlements became important centers of trade. So just like I said, right there when we box this area off, important centers of trade. But we did that together. We didn't need this page over here. African settlements grew to become important centers of trade, and as trade increased, so did the wealth and power of West African rulers. Okay, I'm also going to add that wealth and power. Alrighty, now what led to this? Why did this happen? Why was West Africa able to become an important center of trade? Well, I'm sorry, I know this is the last one, but I just read it, so I'm gonna write it down real quick, and it's my favorite detail. It's all about the camels. All right. Camels. Allowed. Merchants. I was gonna say people or traders, but nope, merchants would be the better word. More mature and domain specific language. Allowed merchants to carry. What word did I use to describe those different products? Oh, there it is, products. To carry products or goods across the Sahara Desert. And I'm gonna underline camels, okay? What else led to this? What else led to this? Go ahead and pause this video at this time and go ahead and finish the other two. There are actually 3 more, but go ahead and pause and finish up those other 2 little boxes.